Now, with that theory behind device management in mind, let's go to what it looks like. All right? Because this is, we have a lot of different things that we could be thinking of in this case. So so we have the client managed with the two client components, the Defender for Endpoint Sensor, the Microsoft the mobile device management client. It is in Intune, Defender for Endpoint, and there is Defender for Cloud Apps. So now let's look at what this all means. Now, if I check it out, let me just go in and I want to start by going into the Entra portal, entra.microsoft.com. This is obviously where Azure Active Directory Entra ID is being managed. We do have information about devices here. Now, if we check out the overview of our devices here, then we see a couple of different things. We see, for example, an overview that says, hey, what kind of devices do we have? We have devices that are not managed. We have devices that are not compliant. We have devices that are stale, which means they haven't basically been used for a certain amount of time, in this case, more than 6 months. We have the total number of devices that we know about. Apparently there are some preview features what I don't know, but it seems, you know what? Let's just switch everything on because that is super cool, right? I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see. I'm not sure if this is a smart decision, by the way. There's this, I don't know about you, but what I really, really, really like is beta stuff, right? The preview stuff. Let's see what is happening. Is it going to work? I don't know, but that's what I like. So I just switch all that stuff on. Then we have a list of the devices that we actually have, right? We have quite a few devices here. In my case, you can see that I have some Android, I have iPad, iOS, a MacBook, some Windows devices here, phone, another couple of other Windows devices that we have. This is just a list of devices that are noticed in my Entra ID. One of the things that what you see here is the join type. Some devices are Entra ID registered. Some devices are Entra joined. And what you don't see here, but what is also a value that works, is hybrid joined. Now, hybrid joined means a device is joined into Active Directory domain service and it is joined into Entra ID. That enables users for single sign-on. Entra ID, the Entra joined devices can only happen for Windows devices. And basically, when a Windows device is Entra joined, it means that we have told Windows that if someone signs in, you want to check the user's identity with Entra ID. Right? It's like a normal Active Directory domain service join, but now it happens to be in the cloud. Windows devices, as well as other operating systems, can be Entra registered. Entra registered means that devices are used by users to access Entra ID protected applications, but the device is not Entra ID joined. So, for example, if you have a Windows computer and you start Teams and you use Teams to connect to the Teams server and SharePoint and everything to use Teams, then that device is going to be listed as Entra registered because we know it exists, because a user is using it. That's it. So that's a little difference. That's a little difference there. So here we have devices. From here, you can just you can open up a device like this. My Windows 11 ARM device is actually the device that I use to create these drawings, which is this is a Windows-based virtual machine. Here we see some information about the device in Entra ID. We see the device ID, the object ID. We can see this is Windows, the Windows version, Entra joined, the owner, the user, device managed in Intune, not compliant in Intune. So apparently security-wise, my device is not okay. Group memberships, when was the device registered for the first time? when did we last see it, which is somewhere yesterday during the day we did see it. That is what we get to see. We can, if we are lucky, we can even see the BitLocker recovery key if the disk was locked. There's also some local admin password settings we can do. The LAPS, local admin password tool solution, is integrated here as well. So a device just shows a little bit of its information, like here. However, Entra ID has never been designed for managing devices. That's also why there is no group policies here. There is no kind of policies that we have. We just know the devices are here. They are listed. That's it. If we want to do anything with managing the devices, we need to go and choose to use Intune, at least in the Microsoft world. That means that we want to be in intune.microsoft.com. Intune.microsoft.com is. Oh, I have a typo, right? I see something wrong here. Intune again. Intune.microsoft.com. This is. Come on. Here we go. Intune.microsoft.com is the better part here. This is Intune. This is about device management. For example, if I want to check out my list of devices here, then we can see in the list of all devices, we can see the devices that we have in this environment. So I can see that it's my daughter's laptop, my son's laptop, my girlfriend's laptop, my computer here, the Windows 11 virtual machine that I have, an Android device, and an iPad. So this is what I have. These devices are all managed. My phone, for example, is not listed here. My phone is not managed, but my iPad is, for example. So but even though that these devices are managed, that still means that sometimes the ownership could still be personal. So, for example, my daughter's laptop is a personal device. If I want to go and manage this device in Intune, I can go and connect to it. It will show me some information about the device here, the computer name, the ownership, the serial number, user information here as well. The reason that my own account is the primary user account is that my daughter doesn't have a license in Intune or anything. It's just a computer that she's using. But what we can see about, because this is a personal device, and that means privacy-wise, there is a couple of things. Like if I want to choose to locate the device, then I cannot do this because this is a personal device. My girlfriend, not that I don't trust her, by the way. I just wanna. This is just an example. My girlfriend's device is a corporate device, and therefore I can locate the device. So based on GPS data that the device has, we can actually see where that device is. It would be going into. It's going to show a map of where the device is. We just have to refresh and wait. And also important, and probably not the case in today, is that this device has to be running. The device has to be switched on, otherwise we won't be able to find it. Yeah. So that is something you could do. If this device was a phone and it was a corporate phone, you would see the full phone number. A personal phone, you will only see the last 4 digits. Now, what is kind of weird at this case is that the device is managed. So if I am the administrator of the device, I can go connect to the device and I can go into the properties of the device and I can change the personal thing to corporate like this. I can go and say, yeah, I know what I'm doing, and now I click save, and all of a sudden, this device is now a corporate device. If I go back to the overview, go back here, I can now try to locate the device. So, and the end user working on the device, in this case my daughter, well, there is an app on the phone or on the device. Not It's not a phone. There's an app, the company portal app, and that company portal app will do a little notification. That's it. But you'll actually have to see this. So from privacy perspective, this is kind of a weird thing. Because now all of a sudden, I can go and try to see if I can locate the device. If it's running, it will connect. It will try to check the GPS coordinates, and at one point it whoop. Okay, not here. At least I guess not. That would be surprising. I'm expecting. Yo, I'm not. The zooming is not something that I am. At least I don't think I am doing the zooming. But so I'm expecting the device to be somewhere here, because she is now she's working as an intern at this company, and well, she uses her own computer for that. So let's we'll check back later. I don't have to stay here. Let's just go and check back later. Another thing that we can do is so the device is with this, the device is managed, which means that we can use Intune to send configurations out. Now, when we send configuration out, we can do all kinds of things. I want to be focusing only on the security related components. So we have, if we think about the devices here, we can go into configuration, and here we can create all kinds of policies for different types of operating systems. We can go and say, hey, for Windows devices, we can go and, for example, create, let's say, an endpoint protection policy. And this allows us, let's say this is my first endpoint protection policy update. Then let's go. And here we have all kinds of settings we can push. Like, hey, I want to configure the firewall in a certain way. I want to configure the Windows encryption in a certain way, including BitLocker, like this as an example. Other things we may want to configure is Microsoft Defender Security Center. So here I want to run ransomware protection, or I want to do virus protection, ransomware protection, account protection, firewall, app and browser protection, hardware protection, hide. What is that? Hardware protection, hide. Okay, I don't know what that is. Let's see. Configure if end users can view the hardware protection area. Okay. Hide that. Like this. Family options, block. So basically, we can go through all kinds of things here. Other things like user rights, right? What is the user allowed to do on the device? So this is just an example. Now, typically, if you have been working with Windows management, these are settings that you would do using group policies. However, well, in the modern workplace, we don't want group policies. We may have some devices that are hybrid intra-joint, where the device is joined into Intune and Azure AD or Entra ID and Active Directory domain servers. Then you may still have some group policies, but hey, hopefully you could get rid of that, and at one point you would be switching to the cloud-based management. And that is basically what we see here. So we can create these policies, and when we're happy with everything we've done, we can then go in and say, hey, I want to go and assign this to the devices that I know or the users that I know. And then we send those settings out. Because it's cloud, it takes a little while for everything to be published, but the same thing happens with Config Manager. And then once the settings are there, the settings are active, and there you go. That is how to do that. Obviously, it's not as simplistic as I present it to you now. There's all kinds of settings, and you have to avoid conflicts, and there's quite a bit of work there. There is specific Intune courses. If you like, there's like a 5-day course on device management called MD 102. Here at Glasspaper, I am also running a specific device management course, which is a 3-day Intune masterclass, to dive deeper into this stuff and also dive deeper in the for endpoint and so on. But this is just the quick overview, right? So you push these settings like this. Other things, security related, super important, is that we can push updates, right? We have we can create update rings where we can configure, for example, the way, the when, and the how Windows updates are being pushed to clients, whether or not we want to use deadlines for updates, that we want to push, let's say, quality updates or feature updates, and so on. So you can push updates to those devices as well using, well, there's different ways in Intune to push updates, but this is one of them. To your client computers, Windows, or for example also Apple. Um, those things we can push via Intune. You can push applications via Intune, um, but that is something that I don't really relate to security. Well, you can push the applications via Intune. One thing we can also push via Intune is the part where the Defender for Endpoint sensor is going to be configured. So if a device is managed in Intune, you can go and say, hey, I want Intune to configure the Defender for Endpoint sensor to make it work with Defender for Endpoint. So we have, for example, a policy we can create here in configuration. We can create a policy like this. And here we do have a Windows policy template that is named Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And here we can go in and say, hey, I want to create this policy. I want to go and say, hey, let's just enable it. Even if I do nothing, there is a setting that says, there's sort of a hidden setting that says, I'm going to enable it. And then click next, next, finish, and deploy this to your computers, and it will enable the Defender for Endpoint client. Now, what may fool you a little bit is that when I configure security for my devices, I initially go here into my devices view and then in configuration, and this is where we can create some policies. On the left-hand side in Intune, there's also endpoint security, which also allows you to create some policies related to security. One of the biggest challenges in Intune is not to run and create yourself conflicts about settings, because in Intune there is multiple ways to change the same value on a client, and you really have to pay attention on how you choose to approach this. Security, however, is specialized for security, and also here we have the endpoint detection and response policy that basically does the same thing, and that is enable the Defender for Endpoint client. You can create a policy like this. For example, here we can monitor the endpoint detection and response onboarding status, which means what devices did we use a policy for to enable Defender for Endpoint on that client. And here we can see the Defender sensor state is yes, which is kind of a weird state for I don't think yes is a state. How do you feel? Yes. Okay. But well, here you see. So it's onboarded. It runs, right. That is what you get to see. Other than that, we see. So what we have done now, I have used Intune to push the Defender for Endpoint client. Also, we can, for example, push antivirus settings, disk encryption like BitLocker or macOS File Vault, or firewall settings like this. Some security related settings, and the result is that on that client, the Defender for Endpoint, on that client here, the Defender for Endpoint sensor is switched on. Let me first save this picture, otherwise I'm going to lose it. 201 device security, let's name it like this. .png, device security. So if I would, for example, take this, if I take this here, this is the new command line interface, the Windows, what is it, terminal. If I run a command like let's run, for example, get service something that has the name sense in there, then you'll see that that service is indeed running, right? So this is so the service is running. It is it's named the Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection Service. Defender for Endpoint. Its older name is Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection. Later, Microsoft renamed this to Microsoft Defender because it was not just for Windows. And now they named it Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So it's a little bit different, but it's the same thing. Let me just, I want to go and do this. Then, so we can see the service is running, so that's all right. What you then see is that we can go to another location, which is defender.microsoft.com. Now, defender.microsoft.com is the portal that I want to connect to. It will forward me to security.microsoft.com, but at one point in the near future, security.microsoft.com will be replaced by defender.microsoft.com. So for now, I'll just leave it with defender.microsoft.com. And here we see the home of Microsoft 365 Defender. And Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is one of those components. So if I just, if I just go in and say, hey, let's make things well, look a little bit better in this on this left-hand side, then we can see we have the Microsoft Defender home. We have some overall incidents and alerts and some hunting stuff. Later in this course, we are going to sort of bring all the security we have together into a single environment. And that is, then we are going to check these kind of things out. At this point, we can go and say, hey, I do have my Defender for Endpoint capabilities. Here, for example, I can get an overview of my vulnerability management. So here I can see I have devices in my organization. Um, uh, 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 so we can go in and say, okay, what is the exposure for my devices? The exposure score is 37. I want this to be as low as possible because the higher my exposure, the bigger the chance is that something may hit my computer. And how can we limit or how can we reduce the exposure is by, for example, mitigating vulnerabilities. Here we can see, for example, that my top security recommendations is that, hey, we need to update Adobe DC to a certain version. That is something that I need to do. I need to do that on 3 different devices because there is a verified exploit publicly available for one of those weaknesses. That means, it doesn't mean that my devices are currently attacked by this, but at least we now know that they might be attacked by this in the future because the vulnerability is here and there is an exploit. Now we can update Microsoft Office because there might be something here. There's no exploit. There's also no active alerts at this point. We can see there's if as soon as this turns red, you start to pay attention because then, well, you are under attack, right? So we have a couple of things we can do. Some events in the last so many days. Hey, Windows 10 has new vulnerabilities. Windows 11 has new vulnerabilities. Google Chrome has new vulnerabilities that we know about in the last 7 days. We get some other information about software being vulnerable. The devices that are exposed. Here we can actually see that these are the devices with the most weaknesses. So my son's laptop has 137. My Windows 11 ARM machine has 72. The Surface Book by my girlfriend is 67. So yeah, there is a couple of things that we need to do here, right, in order to fix things. That is what you get to see. But here we can also go in the assets view and then check the devices itself. And here we get to see the actual devices. So here we have the devices that are in, here are the devices that are in Defender for Endpoint. My Windows 11 machine, my phone, my daughter's laptop, my son's laptop, my girlfriend's laptop, my own laptop is here. In my other in Intune, you saw that I had an iPad and an Android device. Those are not being listed, and that may mean that those devices have not been connected to for too long, right? So if they are switched off for too long, if I have disabled Defender for Endpoint on the device for too long, they are not shown. But here we can see. So here we can see the devices, and if I would check, for example, my daughter's computer again. Now we went into Intune, right? In Intune, let's see if we, here in Intune, let's see if we now have sort of found her device. So let's see if we can check out here if the device is indeed located. Oh, it's still pending. So the device may be switched off. I don't know. Maybe she's not using it at the moment. But here we can see the device again. And here, let me just get rid of this. Here we see information about her computer. Some general information like what Windows version is here and the health state. It's the first scene and the onboarding status, and the last scene was yesterday. See? So this device has been used yesterday, somewhere in the afternoon. So that may be the case that we cannot find it. Some information about the Defender engine at this point, the device ID. Well, we can see all kinds of things, right? We can see information about the user, the firmware version, so that kind of information. Also, at this point, we can check out inventory. So here we have the software inventory for this device. We can see that Zoom meetings on the device has 57 weaknesses. Windows 11 has 68. Adobe Illustrator has 4. Office has 1. The .NET Framework has 1. And all the other software apparently has no weaknesses at the moment. But this allows me to quickly investigate, to quickly see, hey, what software do I need to publish updates for? You can also check out the vulnerable components on the device. So there's also something else running here. Browser extensions that may be installed or available, certificates that we have on the device, and whether or not they're expired or not. That we can check. And that also shows the list of discovered vulnerabilities. So here we see a complete list of the CVE documents. And here we can see, for example, that we have a CVSS score, like a risk score of 9.6, which is critical. So I can open this up and it gets me some information about that vulnerability. So this is what it says. This is about, this gets you some more information about this. You can open the complete vulnerability page. That gets you even more information, like what this is about, but also how many devices are exposed to this? What is the vulnerable software related to this? What is the recommendation related to this? Which is, well, update. And the affected software is these applications. So this is more than just information about that device. Actually, it is a complete solution that will help us to identify what is going on with this device, but also how that is going on in a broader sense. Like, hey, what are we talking about? We get so we could also go and say, hey, we now are also getting some extra threat intelligence. We now know what's going on, and this is just based on software, but it's a starting point.
Yeah, others from Linux PCs that my users are using, but they're not enrolled in any way in anything Microsoft related, as far as I know. At least not in Defender, because we haven't set up for Linux.
Yeah.
We have alerts for weaknesses in Apache web server. And when I contacted the user, he said I didn't even know I had Apache web server on my PC. So
Yeah.
I keep telling him weaknesses, but how can Defender find that information?
That's a very, very nice question. How can we find that information? You have in what you could set up, or somebody in your organization could have set up a mechanism that will scan devices on your network. What you can do, it's so we can go into settings here. And here we have a solution that is called device discovery. In device discovery, you can set up discovery, and one of the things you can do is you can create what you have a little agent. You can deploy that to a computer, and that computer is then connected to the network, and that computer will then go and scan the network for devices, including, for example, Unix devices. They will do a sort of a ping sweep, like, hey, what kind of IP addresses to respond to things? When we respond to a thing, we're going to try and identify the operating system by sending some port connections and see if we respond to it. Now, Apache is responding to port 80, port 443, because it's a web server, so that might be scanning this. And by sending the right, well, probes, sending the right checks, you might receive, it might come back with a Apache version. Now, if we are able to identify the Apache version, we can then check in the database of vulnerabilities, what are the vulnerabilities for that Apache version, and it will be noticed here. Now, that is kind of a weird system, but yeah, you can do that. You can create an agent, you can run an agent, monitor different networks. Here, for example, what is quite cool is here that oh yeah, I did that. My my daughter's laptop happens to have that agent installed on it. I wonder how that happened. It's nothing to do with me, maybe a little bit. So that is what we see. And then when her computer is connecting to different networks, we can see those networks here. This is my home network. Um, this is where she has her internship. This is my ex-girlfriend's, her mother's network. Some other networks that he has been connecting to. My girlfriend's lab network. So those are being found. And based on that, we can then go back into our list of devices. Now we can see that we can identify computers and mobile devices. But we can also, for example, identify network devices. Now, in my case, that's not much, but this might identify hotspots or IoT devices that we have found. In my old network, I used another Wi-Fi in my old house. This was full of information because it found my dishwasher, and it found my all my Google my Nest cameras, the hub devices. It found my doorbell. It found my Tesla on the network. It was even able to tell what kind of Linux it was running, and if there were any vulnerabilities in there. That's that's some cool information. So like this, it will basically show, it will show information. Yeah, that's what it does. If I show, for example, 6 months of information, so a little bit more in the history, right? Maybe some network devices. Here, actually, it shows network devices that it found over time. Here. Now, here we can see that this is a running Linux, right? This Netgear device. I can try and connect to it, see some information about it. So, and sometimes it even has, it doesn't show anything at this point, but yeah, this is something that you could try and get and find here. So it's actually quite cool, right? So in this case, it's well, it found some network devices here. It found some IoT. Maybe it did it. Yeah, here it found a printer, which is an IoT device. This is my home printer, probably. OS version, uncategorized devices it found maybe in the last 6 months. It didn't. But that is what you could go and do with this. So based on those scans, you may find devices that you didn't even know were in your neighborhood. Pretty cool. Right? Gets you some info. Might also be a little bit scary, but that happens. So yeah, we get information about the device. Again, like I mentioned, we have the inventories, the vulnerabilities. We have capabilities for, hey, what kind of updates are missing knowledge base articles. So apparently my daughter needs to install some security updates, right? That Microsoft released. This is Patch Tuesday stuff, typically. We have security recommendations, basically a list of things that we need to do to make the computer better. So this is attack surface reduction. If we follow all these guidelines, the device is going to be secured better, right? That's the idea. Not only this is about updating things, this is also about, for example, what kind of Windows-related settings do you want to change in, in, in order to get the device protected better. So here it says something, use advanced protection against ransomware, because, well, we have something called a policy that can allow you to do this. So this is what you want to do, and this is how to do it. And that will then go and tell, okay, if you implement this, then it's going to be off the list, and your device is going to be better protected. Attack surface reduction. Now, the thing is, Defender for Endpoint is not doing the attack surface reduction. It will just identify what you need to do. Then you can go into Intune, not here, yeah, well, here, but we want to go into endpoint security. And here we have attack surface reduction policies we can create. And we can configure those settings. Or if you're really lazy, you can use security baselines. And these security baselines, you can go, for example, use the Defender for Endpoint baseline, create a profile based on that. And what you'll see here is that it will then come up with settings that are pre-populated. So you don't even need to think about this. It just apply this to your devices and go. You want to be careful though.
Yeah. What do you think about using security baselines instead of manually doing all the settings?
Well, what I think about security baselines is that potentially this is a super nice way to implement security really fast. But you also want to be careful because it might also stop the user from being productive. So the ultimate way to implement these baselines is pilot them to a smaller group of users, see if they can still be productive, and if they can still be productive, then just have that apply to maybe more users. But you want to be very careful with this because it might also block things that users actually need. But yes, it is one way of taking care of this.
We have been using the security baselines quite a lot because I think there are so many settings and choices and combinations of choices.
Yeah.
It's really hard, but I think the security baselines is made by people that are really good in security and also know the tools.
Yeah.
That.
Well, these baselines are built by Microsoft. And there's actually more baselines. There's also a Defender for Endpoint baseline. This is what the people at Defender for Endpoint think you should do. There's also a security baseline for Windows 10, which is the clients. This is what the Windows people think you should do, which is pretty much the same but a little bit more. Then there is yeah, well, for applications, for enterprise baselines for your Office apps security. They made that up, which you can also use, by the way. You can create a profile that goes say, hey, I want this policy to be created. Let's say test, and here we can see all the settings related to Office. Hey, what you to do with Excel in this example? What are the security related settings you want? And this will block all kinds of data, block all kinds of scripts and macros and that stuff. Same thing goes for Outlook, right? So if you want to get a very quick way of protecting your Office applications, then this is what you want. However, you may be using some kind of a very specific third-party Outlook plugin that may break because of this, and then you want to go and identify what that is and change that because that plugin may be super important for you. And so that kind of things you can easily implement like this. It's the easiest way, but also you want to be a little bit careful with this. It's also a way that may break things for users. Well, just like that. So we have the devices, we have the recommendations, and then there is something else which I will be showing you after the break.